Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus, presented by the Kashrus Awareness Project in conjunction with Torah Anytime. Today we are joined by Rabbi Sholem Fishbane, Kashrus Administrator of the Chicago Rabbinical Council and Executive Director of ACO. Thank you, Rabbi Fishbane, once again.
Thank you for
Now, the last time we spoke, we discussed the Kol Koreh that was released by Gedolei Rabbanim regarding home-based businesses and the need for food produced for profit to be prepared and produced under supervision. That was the message, an important one, and we discussed last time some of the differences between today and years ago. What I'd like to ask you on this segment is, based on your extensive experience, a home-based business owner, what kashrus problems, what pitfalls do you find these home-based businesses encountering? Walk us through what problems could arise in that type of environment.
Sure. Nothing is intentional, obviously. We're talking about from people. Most of the time it's lack of knowledge. And some of the examples that I've personally seen, one day I was sitting with somebody who has an Instagram account, and he says, "Let me show you what's going on." And he opened it up, and he showed me the various home businesses in his neighborhood. He actually took pictures of me, and I have it somewhere in my papers here. There was stuff being sold with asparagus that had not been, shaved, because that's where, certain parts of it the bugs hide in. Things with fresh raspberries, various things like that. It was truly shocking, because we know what goes on in our restaurants to try to get those things clean. And you need extensive experience, and some things we don't even allow, like the fresh raspberry or the fresh blackberry, and those are being sold. But that was was an interesting conversation I had with them. But what I have seen are things that people, when they grew up, they understood. Let's say you make a cake. It's very good. You have it for Shabbos, and if it makes it past Friday night, we're all good. And that's how it works. But a lot of people didn't know that when you make a lot of cake, there's actually the halachos of challah, because who's making that a big amount of that? And that's, for example, one thing. I remember I was with a friend, and he says, "Can you come in? I have to pick up something." And I went in with him, and it turned out there was this lady selling challahs and baked goods, and he picked it up, and when we were leaving, she said, "Oh, by the way, that bread is milchik." So he says, "Oh, thank you for telling me." And I'm looking at this, because sometimes when you're in the industry long enough, you take things for granted that everybody knows the very mefurish halacha in Shulchan Aruch at the end, that you're not allowed to make milchik bread unless there's mama's cheese on top, or it's small enough that you eat right away. There's different halachas. But certainly to make which was a large loaf of bread, and her just saying, "By the way, that's milchig," not only couldn't he use it, but there's nothing she can do with it anymore. It becomes a chaticha shel iser. And I said this, and I asked him, what I was talking about, I asked her, very, very erlicha from people, just that halacha, that siman of Shulchan Aruch, never made it to, the curriculum in school. Mm-hmm. That's an example of that. A similar case I remember. This person actually made a lot of challahs, and ended up. I was talking to her husband, and I said, "So how do you take off the challah?" And he said, "Oh, we do this and that." I said, "But I notice your wife also makes a rye. Does she take off challah separately?" "No, we take off the challah, and that covers everything." But that's not the halacha. Mm-hmm. There's halachas that every min needs to take off. So obviously, I'm not focused just on challahs and baked goods. There's all sorts of things that are being made. Just in my neighborhood alone, there's people that sell dips. Dill dip. Dill could be quite infested. Sure. And the thing is that we in kashrus, or if you have a hashgacha, we follow the changes. There could be seasons when, let's say, toloyim, insects that are incredibly infested. Right. You don't even touch it. If you're not plugged in, either through yourself that you're in hashgacha, or you have a Rav HaMachshir, you're never going to know that. And people
or the difference between organic and non-organic. If you're not
Exactly.
in the business, you won't know that there's a difference.
Exactly. Or even hechsherim that look very similar. There are so many hechsherim that you really need to know, oh, that is not, it really looks alike. Many examples like that. So certainly baking and cooking and meat boards. I mean, meat is an incredibly difficult thing to learn the halachas. There's someone who I know that the home business, very nice lady. It was Erev Yom Tif, and asked the help, the non-Jewish help, to come in and help him out, or help them out actually, and without understanding how, let's say, the rice cooker works and how that particular oven shuts off, and then it was bishul akum through and through. Bishul akum. Not only was the food not kosher, the kelim were not kosher. Many such examples. So people are good.
How about onions and eggs left overnight?
Right.
I know that was something that I brought up to someone, and they didn't have any knowledge of it.
Right.
You could really go through every siman in Yeridea and find some component of a halacha related to kashrus that a homemaker, rightfully so, may not be so familiar with. But when you're running a business and you're serving as your own mashgiach, so to speak,
Right.
you really have to be proficient in that.
The example you gave is a great one. You know why? Because it's not even mentioned in Shulchan Aruch about the onions and
Right.
so you could say, I learned all Shulchan Aruch and I'm set to go, right? There's a lot of involvement. The kashrus professionals today that I'm proud to be associated with, we spend so much time reaching to so many elements to kashrus today, Baruch Hashem, and there's really good people in it. And for someone to go into the home business, I urge them to learn the halachas, become knowledgeable, and take on some sort of oversight that has similar, and we're all good to go. It's not, it's very doable, but certainly to think that, okay, I grew up kosher, I kept kosher my whole life, and I remember how we did it at home, and therefore let me take that and translate it to a business. Believe me, there's like Koreh Zel's Kol Koreh.
Wow. Thank you for this information, and Mir Hashem will continue the conversation.
Thank you.